the journey of owning these many practices and having a lot of associates created a lot of different obstacles. But having a lot of associates, I've just seen the struggle of them being very unhappy. I had to learn how to do things more simple and not bring that heaviness, either to my house after work or to the office the next day. And that really created, an environment for me to still be able to practice even to this day.
We make dental billing and insurance easier to understand. Subscribe to stay updated and help us grow the channel.
And we are back with another edition of Nobody Told Me That. And I have a guest on who is not a dental biller, doesn't do medical billing. I know we've been on a run for a little bit. I have Dr. Mark Davis here with me of Dental Simplified, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about time management, how dentists can really improve their lives, which means like all of our lives get improved. I'm really excited to kind of dive into this. So Mark, how are you? How's everything going?
Good. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be really fun because from a managerial point of view, we get a lot of doctors listening. I'm always surprised how many doctors are listening. But from a managerial point of view, one of the questions I get often is, how do I work better with my doctor? Or I'll hear things like, my doctor is in a weird place. I feel like we're growing and I see that he or she is getting really stressed out. I feel like I'm not providing that friction-free environment as a manager that I should be. And so when you and I were, communicating, I thought this was really great because let's hear it from the doctor's point of view. Like, let's see what you have to say about all of this. And first, though, I want to just have you tell your story because you have your multi-practice owner and now you're shedding them for simplicity. So do you want to tell them a little bit about your background and what's
Sure.
going through your head with this coaching career that you've got?
Thank you.
Yeah.
My background has been multi-practices for the last 30 plus years. I've been out for almost 36 years now. And I'm actually down to my very last practice as of today, which really feels quite good.
Yeah.
But the journey of owning these many practices and having a lot of associates created a lot of different obstacles and opportunities for myself. And the opportunity was, it gave me some time freedom, even though it's stressful owning a lot of practices. But I enjoyed it. And now I'm shedding these, like you just said. And here I'm starting this consulting journey that I believe I can give pearls back to dentists due to owning all these practices and seeing so many different variations of practices and associates and staff. So that's where I'm at.
Where is the big impetus for you as far as wanting to help a dentist? Is it because you see them struggling with employee management? Is it because I know you said time management is a big thing, and then that leads to better leadership. Like, what made you in your many locations, were you driving from here to one and going, you know what, there's just got to be a better way. I see Dr. Smith is really having a hard time. And you started mentoring. Like, what made you think this is it? Like, this is what I want to do?
I think for me, I had to learn how to do things more simple and not carry a lot of weight every day, because every practice had a certain amount of weight, and even the day has weight, with patients and staff. And I had to learn to be able to shed that and not bring that heaviness, either to my house after work or to the office the next day. So this simplification is really why I'm still standing here and still happy doing dentistry, because I've been able to make my life simple. I have the ability to walk into the office. I've never even done staff meetings. I just didn't see the real value of that for myself, and not that should be what other people should take. But I could go in, I don't know what the schedule looks like, and I could turn it on. And the same thing when I left that day, once I walked through that door out, it's off. And I can go home, and I found peace. And that really created, an environment for me to still be able to practice even to this day. But having a lot of associates, I've just seen the struggle of them being very unhappy. But I think a lot of times it stems from them not even taking care of themselves in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's health and fitness and sleep and exercise and the things that are all important that have been very important to me. And the weight of the practice just gets down and they become unhappy and they can't find the freedom that it possibly, can afford them and allow them to feel, free of stress and moving forward.
I think it's a talent that is hard to hone when you are able to leave something at the office. I mean, that's hands down one of the biggest issues for entrepreneurs, obviously, because it just, you wake up in the middle of the night and there's no, I'll do it tomorrow at the office. You just run downstairs and do it, right? But when you're an associate dentist, somebody who's kind of getting into their groove, I don't think most people can turn it off. That's something that they just, there's something called the wit of the staircase where whatever you say, you go up the staircase and you're like, oh, I should have said something different, right? Like that you replay the day over and over again. Is that something that came easily to you? How would you tell someone, let's leave it at the door? I feel like listeners are going to be like, how do I do that?
Yeah. I think with the multiple practices, I had to. There was no option of not being able to do that because the weight of all of the stress of all the practices you could just, could bury you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of my learning process of just being able to deal with that. The other really huge component was really taking care of myself.
Okay.
And that's in a health manner of, like I said, eating right, sleeping, exercising, all of the things that we know that we should do. And I think those two components really allowed me to find the place that I can just leave it there and not, take it home. What's done is done.
Yeah.
I always did the best job I could clinically and with the patients and the staff. So I didn't have a lot of those anxieties throughout the day. I knew how to read a patient well. I related to my staff very well. In fact, I'm still in contact with some of my staff members in my very first practice.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've had a good relationship with them. And I didn't ever bury those relationships or get those sideways. Then I could leave. I could go. I did the best job I could and felt good. And there was no reason to bring it home to burden my family or with those type of issues.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow would bring a whole new day of, challenges that you had to face. And
Right.
if you just let it build up, it will be just such a heavy backpack that people, they crumble and they start finding unhappiness of the work and dentistry becomes just too much for them.
So walk me through that, because I know what was really heartbreaking for me is I had somebody who came through one of my workshops and he was out of school, I think less than a year, and he was already very unhappy with his decision. He just knew within a couple months he didn't want to be a dentist, but yet, look at that bill he's got to pay every month. Walk me through what happens when a dentist gets in touch with you and says, I need something. I don't know what. I mean, I know we talked about length of engagement. You've got, it's definitely going to vary, I imagine, by person.
Yes.
But how do you dig deep to find out like what the issue is? And let me just preface this by saying, as a manager, we're going to try to fix it, but there are some times when we can't. Like there needs to be some sort of collegial conversation too. Like I can't fix what a doctor's thinking because like I don't know what's going on there. I can fix something,
Right.
but not all of it. So yeah.
I'll have a client start off with answering a set of questions and just kind of evaluating where they are at and what their weaknesses and what their strengths are. And then I would build a program based on that. And I see like time management is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
just even interfacing with the patient and how you communicate with them, recognizing what their needs and wants are. I mean, I can go into an operatory and I feel like I can read the patient very quickly,
Okay.
what they want and what they don't want. And I don't spend a lot of extra time. If a patient is really very unsure of wanting any work, I don't press them. That's just I haven't had that need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can recognize where they want to hear what I have to say, and I can lean into that and I'll spend more time. Dentists are going to have different flat sides.
Okay.
And some might be with time management, some might be with procedures, understanding what they can or can't do clinically.
But that's interesting though, because most dentists, I think, they figure that if they get the training, they're going to be able to do it. And whether or not they enjoy it, is not always a consideration. I know one doctor that never does root canals, even single canals, he just hates them. So there's pressure though to do everything to stay profitable. How do you get someone to realize like it's okay, let it go?
I've been able to do most things, and I don't elect to do ortho. I don't elect to do impacted thirds. I don't elect to do implants, even though I can do those things. But I focused on the things that I'm really good at, and I know how I can manage my day where it doesn't become overwhelming. So the procedure doesn't become the stressful part for me anymore. It's just the patient of understanding their needs. And I don't think everybody has to be the super doc to do everything, because I don't think it's really hard to do everything really well and efficiently and where you just don't get hung up. And I believe that time management is just one of the real keys to creating the day that doesn't just go to pot. Your staff gets aggravated if they're not getting their breaks or lunch. Patients give you a certain amount of time to do that procedure, and you need to get it done. Fussing around and spending 6 hours on a root canal is not what they want. And that is what, and I asked a lot of patients that have had maybe not a good dental experience. I would say really the main thing about not having good experiences comes down to really two things: the shot, and are they numb enough?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I think a lot of doctors think the patient's numb, because you'll ask them, hey, are you numb? They'll say, sure, I'm numb. But are they really numb where they're not getting zinged by that and putting that stress on them? So those are the things that I really take my time in doing. But once I have the patient numb, then I am confident with all the procedures that I do. I can do them very quickly and fast. They're not there for an hour massage. So, if you can do the procedure in 30 minutes, they're like, wow, that was great, as opposed to like 2 hours and their mouth was craned open, and they start losing interest a bit in that, and confidence in the doctor. So those are the things I can help a doctor look at it differently and manage their day better. And I think really learning how to manage one day creates the week better, the month better, the year better, and maybe a whole career better.
So when you say time management, so traditionally for an office manager, time management is always on the schedule. The schedule is it's the nexus, right? So with the schedule, how do you help with time management? Are you in the practice observing, or do you discuss with the doctor their protocols? Like, how are you physically doing the time management conversation?
Well, I think that would be up to the client what they would feel like they would need. I'm open to being in the office to help them with that. I don't view myself doing that a lot because it's difficult.
Yeah.
But I think I can help them even on a Zoom meeting of saying and understanding where they're really getting behind. I think a classic one is, you're in a couple of procedures and all of a sudden, someone says, oh, you have a new patient exam. Like, oh no, that'll take me an hour, for some doctors. But you have to, what's the time allowed? Maybe you only have, 5 to 10 minutes. Well, you have to make a quick hit with the patient, introduce yourself. Maybe you identify one problem that they have and why they've come there, and you say, okay, let's get that booked, and then we'll relook at the other things. They got to start somewhere. And I think you can manage things that seem like they're much longer periods of time where you can really shorten that period of time, or a hygiene exam, you can go in there quickly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people just get so far behind on those type of things, and then the hygienists get upset. It just cascades, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a total domino effect, and it's the worst when it happens early in the morning because the whole day is a mess.
You have lunch maybe to get caught up, but
and even if they do get caught up in lunch, everybody's mad at each other. So there's so there's that, and then it just continues. So
I think that's been really one of my real positive attributes, is that I've been able to really good with time management. I just don't let days get away. It's no fun for anybody.
Let me ask you. You mentioned something about you don't have to be a super doc. How prevalent is that when you doctors in the wild get together or have conversations, or when you're reading forums or groups? How prevalent is that they feel like there's so much peer pressure? What does that do to a doctor's mind?
I mean, there's different types. There are some people that are afraid to do everything and anything, and they're the opposite of the super doctor. And I think that's to a fault. That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's the doctors that try to do everything, and there's a few that are very good at it. I think you find what you're really good at and you focus in on those skills. I heard another doctor on a podcast just recently, and he just said, I don't even do root canals. I don't do extractions. He goes, I just do the basics that I do. And he goes, I'm finding I'm more successful. I know I can manage the day really well. And I go, that's exactly right. I think there are just too many complicated. I mean, it's just starting with getting the patient numb. What if you can't get the patient numb? And, that sets you back.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that come at you at every day. An emergency patient. I love seeing emergency patients. They're fun. I'll see them every day. Let's just squeeze them in. And if I can do the treatment, I will.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that you can add to your schedule if you're good with time management and increase your profitability by adding procedures like that and not just always pushing them off or not seeing them. So that's another, I believe, real attribute of being able to help the dentist to, increase their profitability by adding procedures. Or, what if the day just goes to everything falls off? Well, can you make a day out of something?
Yeah.
And usually I can.
Yeah.
But that takes a real committed effort of talking to the patient and convincing them to stay for that day and get that procedure done, as opposed to like, oh, my day went to pot and I'm just going to sit on my phone or whatever on my computer. And
Yeah.
I don't like working like that. I mean, if I'm there, I want to get something done.
One other issue that I hear often too from doctors that are more afraid of doing what you're saying, the same day dentistry, because same day dentistry is so helpful. I mean, that's really how you build patient relationships, but it's not for everyone, obviously.
Right.
But as far as the obstacles for it, one of the biggest obstacles I hear from doctors is my front office will kill me. It'll mess up with the schedule and they need X amount of time to look at insurance and have the conversation. And so it's almost like the doctors would like to do what you're saying, but they don't want to upset the apple cart. And I think that's actually a big issue. I mean, we can talk about this for a long time. I think the fact that we feel we have to get a printout of everything really does start to drive some of that clinical conversation. You've worked with tons of doctors. Do you feel that that's creeping in more and more, the whole non-clinical conversation dictating what the conversation is clinically?
You mean if you can do the same day procedure on an emergency patient in the time that it takes?
Financially, like if there's insurance, then we need to check the insurance. And then, some offices are almost paralyzed by it. They won't do a thing unless they know how it's going to work.
Well, I think the priority is the day that was scheduled and the patients that were scheduled that you have to stay on time with. An emergency patient, you're doing them a favor. And if your office has the room to be able to just let them sit there and we'll figure that out. I get a lot done with emergency patients. I really try to help them that day because they're there for a specific reason. And I think it's a really big practice, builder for people. Like, hey, that was great. He got me in, I got done. And those are the things that people will remember, And they remember, like I was telling a patient that has a bad experience, I ask all the time, what happened? And almost exclusively, I wasn't numb enough or I felt it.
Yeah.
And those are the things, if you can eliminate those type of things, patients will come back in groves and tell their friends and family.
For sure. A patient in pain will sit in the chair while you work with someone else. They'll wait.
Exactly. And I think you can inconvenience them, not your other, you have to stay. And so that's where time management comes in. That's so important that okay, I'm still on schedule.
Yeah.
And if doctor can't stay on time and that really throws everything into a monkey wrench, then they shouldn't do that. And they'll have to, redo that, reschedule them.
So when, say I'm a manager and I'm working with a doctor that is going through and needs someone like you to help them. What am I seeing? Like, what am I seeing in their behavior other than just something's off? What should I be asking to say, maybe we should get you to somebody else?
I believe, people that come with emergencies, there's a variety of reasons. And I think it's very important that the doctor is able to diagnose quickly and not stutter around. And, if it's a root canal that they know it needs to be done and they can't do it, then, diagnose it and get it out and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something you can do, then make that decision quickly and not, stutter around. I think a lot of people will, doctors will try to get x-rays and and they're not good at diagnosing. And I think that's another thing that I've learned over the time. I've been really good at diagnosing and quickly like, okay, this is what the problem is. This is what we're going to do, and be decisive and not just like, well, I don't know. And there's a lot of I don't knows and not sure. And let's refer you to someone else. And I think it's the indecision part that really slows the whole process down. I think if you can get in there and just like, okay, this is what needs to be done and this is what's going to get you better, let's do that.
I'm curious. You said we have an issue with diagnosis. Anecdotally, I am hearing it from veteran doctors hiring newer doctors. They just don't have the time under their belt, or they just maybe aren't great at it. So you said they're not good at diagnosis. And then another comment you just made was there's a lot of indecision. So do you feel, which is two separate things, do you feel like the diagnosis piece is growing as a problem, or do you feel that the fact, because maybe they're diagnosing and they're just afraid to push it? Like, we moved from a lot of watches and circles, right? Circling it. We'll look at it. We'll watch it for next time. And it's really a rare doctor that is ready to go. You know what? I feel strongly that this is going to be this. So, and I'm sure if the two problems are together, it's compounded, but do you feel that there's a diagnosis problem, or do you feel it's more of a confidence, let's get this done problem, or both?
I think they feed into each other a bit.
Okay.
I believe that if you can go in there and you just are hyper focused on what the problem is and not get too raptured by all the other things that maybe the patient has going on, I think you can come to the conclusion of what needs to be done very quickly.
Yeah.
Once in a while, they'll come in with, it feels like, they just threw up a jigsaw puzzle and you're trying to put all the pieces together, and that can be complicated, right?
Right.
You have to, I think I have systems that can help doctors get to, a decisive answer really quick. And then they have to decide, can I do this or can I not? Is the schedule allowing me? There are times there's no way that you can do it. You don't have the assistants, you just don't have the room.
Oh, sure.
You'll have to, reschedule them. And the default is, we'll put you on antibiotics, give you some pain medication. And by that time, maybe they'll go somewhere else too.
Yeah.
So I always believe that if you can get something done that day, you have that patient. And you'll lose patients if you just keep, pushing them off and, come in 2 weeks and let's see about antibiotics. And then they'll come in with antibiotics and they're like, it feels much better. And then you lose the ability to diagnose really the problem because it's masking it.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be able to hit that head on, every day of like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
I think it is hard though, with a lot of younger dentists coming out. I mean, they haven't seen enough. And if they're in, I mean, obviously you have a mentor mindship. A lot of times they're in an office where there is no mentor mindset.
Yes.
And, I think case discussion is just so helpful for doctors. I know I had sat in on multiple ones, and as a manager insurance coordinator, I loved it because I understood what the heck you guys were talking about, and I could, answer questions, to a point. But if you don't have someone you can bounce ideas around, like what would you have done in this case? And what about this? And I feel like that's missing a lot in our industry.
I do. I've been multi-practices and multi-doctor offices all my career. It's been a real learning experience for myself too, because you get to see so much more and more patients and experiences and be able to bounce ideas off doctors. I think if you're solo and you are really isolated, it's a real handicap.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. It's weird for me to say that because I have worked mostly with smaller offices, maybe a couple multi-locations, and they are great settings, but unless they're hooked into a mastermind or a good active study club, you don't see the breadth of cases that you normally would see.
Correct.
And as a manager, like I don't want to deal with only one insurance company. I want to see what else is out there. I want to have multiple conversations, right, with patients. Now, as far as the age range, I thought it was interesting. You said in our pregame that you like the 4 to 7 years into practice, and I think we both know, like, before then, they don't know what's going on. So they haven't figured out yet what's going on. But after that, then there's the complication of staff gets bigger, like just more. And then I thought that was interesting now because you are all about simplifying. So is it a slow creep? Like all of a sudden you're like, wait, I have 16 practices. What the heck happened? Like, what's going on
Well,
there?
the 16 practice has been through the 36 years of practice that I've been doing, and
Yeah,
I've owned, I think, 6 or 7 at one time, and that was busy time for myself.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And I really had to delegate, and I was going to multiple practices and sometimes 2 practices in one day, and
Mm.
everyone's not built for that.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not sure I was, but I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I enjoyed it, but like I said, I built that with the idea that I knew a couple things. I would build in some time freedom for myself because I did have other people working for me, and
Mm-hmm.
I could take time off and my businesses kept working for me. And also, when I was ready to start unwinding like I am now, then I have, ability to do different cash flow opportunities of selling my practices.
Mm-hmm.
I've even held the note for a couple of my practices, which has been really good cash flow for me without, a huge tax bill at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of dentists are definitely scared of doing that because they don't know if that's going to be a problem for them. It hasn't been for me. And I've set it up that way because I knew it'd be important to be able to manage how I live my life because I
Mm-hmm.
had really good cash flow in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But attorneys and accountants were like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But
I
I
was going to
did.
say, no, I have heard, yeah, that's usually it's a, don't do that. But
Right.
then you talk to doctors where they sell and the tax bill is astronomical.
Right.
And, you kind of think someone should have said that to me in the beginning. And the attorneys are like, oh, didn't you know? Didn't you know it was going to be this much? So, and I,
Right.
I feel like, yeah, I know quite a few who have been not happy with realizing that. And then they're like, oh, well, I can't do anything with it because now I got to invest it somewhere else to minimize that. And I said, yeah, the world cruise has got to take a back seat for a little bit. Right.
Right. Well,
So,
that's
yeah.
why I had multiple. That's why I wanted the multiple practices because I knew they would. I mean, I hate to call it like a poker chip, but I knew I would have something as I keep, going down the road of where I'm eventually going to retire.
Hmm.
And then the thought of now I'm down to my last practice, I was getting concerned. I'm like, okay, I need to teach what I know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here I
Yeah.
am with the consulting business.
So when you are talking to your 4 to 7 years out clients, and you have clients that are in different growth stages, right? What's the big thing that you see is different from early practice stage versus where, maybe they've been in practice 15 years, 20 years? Like, where is the mindset for each, and what should we watch out for? As managers,
Yeah.
like, what are we watching out for you all?
Well, I think the dentist that's 4 to 7 years out, I think they're going to find there's a lot of that group is going to find their footing and they're going to be thriving because they have gone to a lot of continuing education, they have good mentorship, and they're doing well. And then there's going to be a slew of them that have not done that and they're just in these old patterns that they've learned as an associate and they just are not getting it.
Yeah.
That's where I can help them. The older doctor, I always say dentistry is a very unfair business because here you've grown this business, you've worked for this business. It should work for you at some point, and all of a sudden, when you're like getting tired of, the daily grind, you got to start slowing it down, and then your business becomes worth less. And it's
Yeah.
just this. I've seen it happen to a lot of my friends, and I understand it's a really unfair business model. It's not like something that's mature and you get to be able to kind of really rest and reap the rewards of what you've really worked. You got to work it hard until the very end, and then you got
Yeah.
to decide to sell, and then you're done. And then what do you do?
Then you're totally like, what now what? So, I mean, you've got an
Correct.
outlet, but I know because I work with a lot of doctors' spouses. And when the doctor retires, they're like, you need to go back to work. Like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to do. And I think with
And the skills,
retirees in general, but yeah.
and I mean, dentists have a certain skill set. They don't. It's hard to just. You're not going to go down to the bottom job and try to work
Right.
your way up when you're 60. You got to
Yeah.
try to figure that out.
Yeah.
I have an associate in my last practice, and it's great. It gives me a lot of time freedom still, and
Hmm.
I'm still actively involved, and I enjoy that. Associates are tough.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we talk about that a little bit? Because one of the biggest challenges is the whole associate mess. I mean, a lot of them don't work out.
Right.
Managers get frustrated because things were working so well, and this was supposed to make things work really well. And now it's a gigantic mess because cultures now are off and chakras are off and vibes are off. It's just bad, right? Talk to me about associateships. Like, I'm sure there's no secret sauce that you want to disclose if you have one, but like, what can we do to make that
Well,
better?
there's two types of associates.
Yeah.
There's an associate that you will have that will be really great and a superstar,
Mm-hmm.
but they won't stay. They
Ah,
can do it
okay.
on their own.
Okay.
So you can't keep that. You can't keep that doctor very long. You can keep them for a while. They'll
Mm-hmm.
learn, but then they know that they've got what it takes to do it on their own, and they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's the associate that will not leave, and that's the associate that is hard to manage
Yeah. Yeah.
because they understand they won't do well on their own. They're for a job, and they may not be a great fit. And I mean, it really boils down to those two types. It's rare when you get somebody that's really motivated and really a superstar doctor that will stay for a long period of time. You just don't see that.
How
But
do
you
you
will.
weed out? How do you weed out that one though that won't leave? I mean, because I'm guessing in your interview with someone, I mean, when you interview for an associate, it's much more than just me interviewing for a receptionist or something. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys, you have to really align clinically, professionally.
True. And multi-doctor offices are tough because you try to keep continuity of care with patients. That's super important.
Sure.
Patients appreciate that. You start getting too many cooks in the kitchen, and then it's a mess. So I think you have to be aligned that way. You're never gonna. No two doctors are gonna see things the same,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be able to complement each other. On
Mm-hmm.
if you're seeing this patient, like, oh, I understand that, but I would maybe do it this way. And so you can't. You have to be able to work together in that sense of being flexible. And somebody's like, I wouldn't really do this, but the patient is expecting it. Should I do this, should I not? And those are some of the questions that come up, and you have to be able to quickly make that decision without the patient like going and questioning, like, now why this doctor told me this and now you're telling me this. So you have to
Yeah.
say it in a way that makes sense to the patient. And that's what you're going to have to really help the associate be able to do on your end as well. And I think a lot of doctors that hire associate, they don't take the time to help them put those together so you can work together. And they're always like, oh, I'm the senior doctor and this is the way I do it and you must do it this way. And then it becomes where they're not going to stay or don't want to stay or they're unhappy. It's hard.
I definitely, I mean, the whole mentorship thing, I mean, it sounds good. And one doctor, he's just a friend of mine, wasn't a client. And he said to me, he said, I think we all go in with the best intentions to be a mentor. And
Yes.
we're excited and we talk about it in the interview and we do it. And then the end of the day, and then everybody's on vacation or that person really upset me. And then he, looking back on his career, he realized he was a terrible mentor and he was always very gun shy. Every time somebody said you need to bring on another associate, his consultant, he would be like, I don't want to because I'm not going to do it right. And he ended up, letting his team on board the associate, which was
Yeah.
interesting on its own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Like, what is that dentist needing to do? Because it sounds like time
Well,
management, right?
I think you have to go in with the spirit of you are going to be a mentor and you've got to be, a really good mentor, not just this half-baked one, and you're just setting them up for failure and not really going to help them.
Yeah.
It has to be really a conscious thought of being able to help that associate. My associate right now she's got equal experience to me, but we do things very differently. But we don't cross hairs of how we diagnose, and if we do, it just I it's easy now that I have the experience of 37 years. People can't argue too much with me. I mean,
Yeah,
or I
that's
don't
true. That's
I don't
true.
allow them to, and not that I'm not open. I just like, this is the way I do dentistry, and this is how I can help you.
Yeah.
I try to do it in a very kind way.
Yeah.
But if they are wanting to do it their way, I'm like, I'm not your doctor. And then all of a sudden they go like, oops, I'm okay. Then they lean in. And so you can carefully say things that are not offensive, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the younger doctor, they don't have that experience where they can maybe have that same vocabulary to the patient, but I have it now, and it makes it pretty easy, and I don't get too much pushback.
It is funny because, as we age, I've noticed this about myself. I don't worry too much now, as much as I used to, about how my words are going to land. And it's not that I'm ever ungracious. It's just, I'm just done sugarcoating at this point.
Yeah.
And, but to a younger person, that is hard because you're so concerned. Like they're in their head so much more before we even, like before even the
Yeah.
words come out, they've run it over in their head over and over again. And it's tough. How do you move somebody past that?
Yeah. I still come in and introduce myself without a mask, without my loops. I stand right in front of them, and I don't sit there and try to, be all covered up and sort of a secretive man behind the scene and just like, oh, this is what you need to do. I try to understand what they really want and what they need, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And my treatment plans are not, I never make long, elaborate treatment plans. I try to give them like 3 things,
Yeah.
because every patient can do 3 things. If they've got 10 things to do, well, they got to start with the first 3.
Right.
So
Right.
why burden them with all the others, and their eyes are rolling back, and then they get a bit handcuffed to not do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's part of the simplification that I try to do. I just don't make it complicated. I want them to understand where I'm coming from, understand that I'm there to help them. And that's just experience. And hopefully that experience I can teach to younger dentists as well, and feel as confident as I do, and not get pushed around. You don't have to get pushed around. And I don't have patient conflicts. I just don't invite them. I don't want them.
Yeah.
And I do everything I can to not create that, because there's nothing positive that comes out of that.
Absolutely.
Just like, okay, let's come up with a plan that, we both can live with. And I also, a big part of how I practice is, perfection is overrated. And you can spend so much time thinking, oh, it's got to be better. It's got to be better.
Yeah.
And you waste a lot of time thinking, and I could have stopped a half an hour ago and I would have had the same outcome. And I've realized that now too. And that's how I can really, create different speeds for myself throughout the day. And I talk about gears to clients of being able, like, first gear is really slow and methodical. That's like giving your shot and understanding what they need.
Mm-hmm.
But once they're numb, you can go to 4th and 5th gear and work away.
Right. Yeah.
And not mess around. They're not there to, like I said, they're not there for an hour massage. If you can get everything done in half the time, they're like, that's great.
Oh, they're so happy. And your team's happy. And then you're happy. Like
Right.
the back is happy. Everything's happy.
Right. So I think gears are really important to be able to use those gears throughout the day to generate where you need to be. Like, okay, I'm behind. I've got to like focus, and I got to get this done, and I've got to be in a different mode.
Are you a dental biller feeling overwhelmed and isolated? I get it. The world of revenue cycle management is complex and ever-changing. That's why I created Dental Revenue Network. Our membership community was created to help you become a better revenue cycle manager and small business operator. Say goodbye to feeling alone and hello to a supportive community of dental billing professionals. Here's what you'll get: monthly billing-focused meetings with peers and experts, business building sessions to elevate your career, resource libraries tailored for billers and billing company owners, introductions to cutting-edge RCM technologies and companies, and a vibrant community for networking and support. Ready to transform your dental billing experience? Visit dentalrevenuenetwork.com today. Don't wait. Join us now and navigate the business of RCM with confidence.
Now, if this is resonating with the audience and you're a doctor who's like, wait a second, I need like this in my life, or a manager that needs this in their life as well, how do they reach you? Like, how are they, and what should they expect? Should they expect a phone consultation? Should they expect...
Well, they can go to my website. It's
Okay.
called dentalsimplified.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's a questionnaire there. They can email me, and I'll have, I'll jump on a call with them, and we can find out if we can work together.
Okay. Do you
and I
take
can
every
help them.
client? It sounds like if you have a questionnaire, it sounds like you are a little bit choosy with clients. Is there
Well, I
a
want
type
to
of client?
know, I want them to grade themselves where their flat points are. Because if you
Sure.
just ask them, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty good at that. Are you? But I have a graduated scale, like 1 to 10, and, hopefully they'll be really honest with where they are with that. And then you can find their flat sides and maybe they are more open to that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Usually, if you ask anybody, like, yeah, everything's great. I do everything perfect. I'm sure you do.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few friends not in dentistry, and one of them in particular, she has a questionnaire like that, and she says it's more or less not to get her comfortable with the person, it's to disqualify the people she knows she's never going to be able to help.
yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even want to waste my time. Like they immediately get, I don't think you're a good fit. Here's so and so that's great with this, and
Well, the person that helped me do this questionnaire, that's exactly right. You want to figure out if they're actually somebody you can work with or
yeah,
not. I
yeah.
mean, if everything they're grading themselves at a 10 at everything, well, then they obviously don't need me, right?
Yeah. And there's going to be deeper issues because they still feel like they need you because they're filling it out, but they're not being honest with it,
Yeah.
with themselves on it. So, yeah, it was funny to hear her say, though, she's like, yeah, I want to make sure that I can actually do something with them. And I want to make sure I don't get annoyed with them as well. So
Yeah.
that was also another motivating factor.
Right. I think
So,
for me, the sweet spot is probably, a 2 to 3 month commitment with the doctor, and
mhm.
they can get tuned up with that.
I like that because I think
And
the longer.
they can stay on, and we can, if they have further questions, and
Mhm.
go from there.
I wish more consulting was structured like that. I understand when there's systems and like if you have no schedule, no collection, I get that. That's more a structured thing. But when it comes to coaching and mentoring and problem solving like this, I wish more consulting was smaller engagements, almost bite sized, because if it's a good fit, they're going to continue and there's always something to work on, until you,
Right.
you graduate them, I guess. But I know when I see something like a 12-month time period, like that's intimidating,
Yeah.
you may after 2 months, you're not vibing with this person, so
Right.
I think it's really smart that you offer that kind of like, let's get to know each other type thing. I'll fix you, but maybe, come back
I
if
mean,
you
my
need more
hope is I can
fixing.
give them more than they ask for.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Always.
Definitely. So dentalsimplified.com. And you also speak on this topic as well. So
Mhm.
check the calendar and see where you are. Do you have socials? I know you have a podcast.
I don't. I don't have a podcast.
I
I'm
thought you
just
had a
changing.
podcast. What happened there? I thought you had
No,
one. Okay.
I speaking and primarily I'm interested in my consulting.
Okay. Okay. So that is something that I know meeting planners are always looking for voices like this. And I know we have meeting planners that listen. The doctors, I think coming up, they have a lot of different challenges than just profitability. And I'm glad that you're focusing in on that
Yes.
as well.
Well, and I think I can make them more profitable as well.
Yeah,
To add, a day that fell apart, or add an emergency patient without increasing profitability, without increasing the stress, is
I
my
think,
motto.
yeah, I mean, profitability follows all of that, right? And
Right.
plus, the most
Everybody wants
important,
that.
the most important thing, Mark, is that if they're happy in their career choice, that it's going to flow around them. I know, having met and worked with so many doctors who are not happy, the change in them is monumental. So
Right.
hopefully we can get to that point with most of the
Right.
industry. So,
Right.
well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I will put all the information in the show notes for people to reach out to you. And dear listeners, as always, I so appreciate that you spend your time with me.
Thank you.
If you learned something new today, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep learning with us.
We're all super busy, so thank you for making time for me today. The show notes will have any links that we referenced in the episode. You can also find links for my book, events, and my online insurance course, Dental Insurance Design and Management. I speak often around the country on management and insurance issues. Come hang out with me in one of my classes. I promise you'll laugh and learn.